Okay, I am going to reconvene the open session, and before I move to any requests from the board, I just wanted to note for the record that Mr. Juarez for John Chung had to leave, and so he will not be voting, and that Mr. Slayton has recused himself, and he will not be voting. With that, I will turn to Ms. Taylor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I would like to make a motion to overturn the ALJ decision.
Second that.
Motion made by Taylor and seconded by Miller. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those, oh, actually, I think we need to take a roll call vote. Is that right? We need to take a roll call vote. So let's use the buttons. Okay, motion passes. The results are that so the motion passes, so the ALJ's decision is overturned.
They only
And-
allowed to vote, the new people aren't voting. Not everybody voted. Yeah.
I'm sorry. Oh, not everybody voted? I'm sorry. Let's do that again, please. So there are buttons to vote with, all the members? It's the green, yellow, and red one? So, sorry, she's going to turn it back on. Just give us a minute. Okay, now, please. Okay, the motion passes, and the ALJ decision is overturned. And that adjourns the full board hearing. Thank you all very much. That brings us back to the regular Board of Administration agenda, and to agenda item number 12, which is state and federal legislative update. Mr.
Good
Pacheco.
morning, Madam President and members of the board. Brad Pacheco, CalPERS team. I know it's been a long morning already, so I'll try to keep the update brief. It's been a very active time in the legislature. I've received some live updates as we've been sitting here this morning. So let me start with the CalPERS-sponsored legislation first. Pleased to share with you that Assembly Bill 2415 that adds a Chief Health Director and Chief Operating Officer to the list of key executives for which the board has salary setting authority passed the Assembly PERS Committee on April 4th. It was heard in Assembly Appropriations today, and it has been placed on the suspense file without prejudice. We had two other sponsored bills that were heard by the Assembly PERS Committee this morning. Assembly Bill 2196, that would require members that purchase or convert service credit in the future to pay any remaining balance upon retirement. And the second bill that was heard was our housekeeping bill, Assembly Bill 3245. They have both passed out of the committee and been placed on the consent calendar. I did want to let the board know that there were several provisions removed from our housekeeping bill that you had approved back in December of last year. The Retired Public Employees Association filed opposition letter against ending any new direct authorizations from retiree warrants. And they also opposed reducing death benefit contract options that the team here believed were underused and would have helped reduce complexity of the funds. Because it is a housekeeping bill, the consultant removed those provisions due to the opposition. The other provisions that were removed were due to opposition by the California Professional Firefighters. That would have allowed CalPERS to collect benefit overpayments after the death of a benefit recipient. CPF also opposed provisions in the bill that the team believed would strengthen CalPERS disability, industrial disability determination processes. So The legislative and program teams will be considering these provisions for future policy bills, and we'll bring those back to you as appropriate. And then finally, Senate Bill 1022, that shortens the time frame in which a contracting agency can voluntarily terminate its contract with CalPERS, and also requires the employer to notify the members on its intent to terminate, will be heard next Monday by the Senate PERS Committee. We have worked with our stakeholders on one amendment. Originally, the bill called for employers to notify their employees of its intent to terminate within 7 business days. We've agreed to amend that so the notification is within 30 business days. So just moving on to a couple other significant bills that we're covering and following. Assembly Bill 2571. This would require any public pension fund in California to ask what the bill says its alternative investment vehicles. For purposes for us, that would be our real estate and private equity partners. In turn, to have those partners ask the companies that they invest in, if that company is in the hospitality sector, to report annually 2 pieces of information: specified race and gender pay equity, and the existence, status, and financial terms of any sexual harassment claim or settlement going back 5 years. So the team has met with the sponsor and the author to share our concerns on this bill. We do believe that it potentially could place California pension funds at a serious disadvantage and jeopardize our competitive role in the private equity and the real estate classes, asset classes. It was pulled from the calendar this morning in the Assembly PERS Committee, so we'll continue to monitor its progress. We're also closely monitoring Assembly Bill 1912. That would hold joint powers of authority, authorities' member agencies jointly and severally liable for all retirement obligations. We favor many provisions of this bill. We do have one concern that we've been talking to the author and sponsor about, and that's the requirement that this board file a civil action against the member agencies in the event the JPA defaults or there's a dissolution. Our concern there is we really believe that that decision should be left to this board, and that there shouldn't be in law a requirement that we file civil action that may not be fruitful and cost the system assets. This bill did pass out of the Assembly PERS Committee this morning, and it will go to the Assembly Judiciary Committee next Monday. In addition, Senate Bill 1413 would establish a pension pre-funding vehicle or a 115 trust that would be managed by CalPERS. It's going to be heard next Monday, in the Senate PERS Committee, and we plan to bring this bill back to the board for a recommended support position in May. And finally, I just wanted to note Assembly Bill 3087. It's not on the list that's before you because it was amended last Monday. It would establish a California Healthcare Cost, Quality, and Equity Commission as an independent state agency to control in-state healthcare costs. It appears to operate similar to the PUC, regulating communications and power providers. It would be controlled by a 9-member governing body, including an appointee of the CalPERS board. It's scheduled to be heard by the Assembly Health Committee on April 24th, and we internally are meeting and preparing to talk to our member and labor stakeholders about this bill. And then just a couple notes on federal activities. On April 2nd, our Chief Health Director, Liana Bailey-Crimmins, and members of our LAD staff, Gretchen Ziegler, met with Representative Ami Berra to discuss CalPERS federal healthcare priorities. As reported last month, Representative Barra is part of a bipartisan healthcare innovation caucus tasked with advancing a legislative agenda to encourage innovative policy ideas, improve quality of care, and lower cost to consumers, and we'll be following that committee closely. And this week, CalPERS will be responding to a letter, you might have seen this in the news, from Representative Marc Desaulniers, who has requested that we consider divestment from automobile manufacturers that produce cars failing to meet California's groundbreaking emission standards. And this is, his request is in reaction to the EPA's announcement that fuel efficiency standards established in 2012 by the former administration will be rolled back. So let me stop there and ask if there's any questions that we can answer.
Thank you. Margaret has left the room. Ms. Taylor.
Yes, thank you. So one of the first things you talked about made me push the button, which is AB 1214, which was us getting additional pay for our health director and I forgot the other position.
Chief Operating Officer, Assembly Bill 2415. Sorry if I said 1215.
2415.
2415.
Okay. So, and I thought you said placed on suspense. Is that correct?
That's correct.
What does that mean?
Which essentially, it's on suspense, it will be voted, we expect that it will go through appropriations and move on.
Oh, okay, so it's going to move on, okay.
Yeah.
And then on AB 2571, the race and gender pay equity in our, I believe you said real estate and private equity?
Correct, real estate and private equity.
Has been pulled from the calendar, and I think it's just, from what you said here, is it's data gathering, basically? It's just reporting on data?
So it started out as what I would consider more like a divestment bill. It would have excluded future investments in these companies if there wasn't specified gender and race pay equity. We've worked with the author and the sponsor. It's now what I would consider a reporting bill, but we do still have, and I don't, Matt is here from the investment office if he would like to speak, but we do have some concerns, in particular with the private equity partners. So we would be required to ask the general partners to then in turn ask the portfolio companies that they invest to disclose this information on an annual basis. You might remember that there was some laws passed around transparency of private equity performance several years ago. Within the law, it was stated that portfolio companies are really, for lack of better words, trade secret to the general partner. So we don't disclose portfolio companies, nor do we disclose their performance. That's all rolled up and aggregated with the performance of the general partner. So there is some concern that this would be reaching down into those portfolio companies and asking them to disclose this information.
So it's not specific enough for us to say it's only going to ask for the general partner's information? It's too
well, it's
broad?
it's asking for the disclosure to come from the companies that the GP invests in that are in the hospitality sector.
Got it. Okay, so given where we want to be on race and gender equity, I agree with this. I would like us to figure out a way to, if we can, figure out a way to get on board. I don't know if working with the author to pull that portion might be something we want to do, but I see you shaking your head, Marcy. Go ahead.
My comments would be simply, these are limited partner arrangements that we have both on the real estate side, at least the way that we've structured the real estate relationship, as well as private equity. So we have to be really careful in not overreaching as a limited partner. And I think we would bring back an agenda item where we could continue to talk about engagement with public companies, the reporting of certain conditions or certain issues that we think are really important. That work is before this board. We'll continue to engage with the bill author on where we think there could be problems with the language in this bill. And some of this, again, is the relationship between a general partner and a limited partner like CalPERS. We have to be certainly careful there.
Certainly. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Brown.
It's from another time. Thank you.
Oh, okay. Ms. Paquin.
Thank you. So I had a question also on AB 2571. Do you believe it will be rescheduled for hearing this spring?
You know, Ms. Paquin, I just got that information from my colleague that's over at the Capitol this morning, so I'll have to talk with the team. I expect that it probably will get rescheduled. There's another meeting at the end of April, so they may just be taking some time to continue to talk to stakeholders.
Thank you.
Okay, that exhausts the questions of the committee, but we do have a couple of, oh, did you have something else to add,
No.
Mr. Pacheco?
No, I'm fine,
We do
thank
have a
you.
couple of members of the public who've requested to speak, Mr. Behrens and Mr. Darby and Ms. Snodgrass. If you could all please make your way down. We have these 2 seats open to my left, 3 seats open to my left. The microphones will be turned on for you. And if you could identify yourself and your affiliation for the record, you'll have 3 minutes to speak.
Ladies first.
It's still good morning. Thank you. Donna Snodgrass, Retired Public Employees Association. I'm here in place of Al Darby. He had to leave yet another meeting. He asked me to speak on the subject of AB 1912, the JPA bill. RPA has a special interest in JPAs and special districts due to our comprehensive coverage of retirees from all jurisdictions contracted with CalPERS. The mission of CalPERS mandates that it act in the interest of members to ensure benefits be paid to the members. This means that legal actions by CalPERS, in our opinion, must be initiated when member benefits are in danger, either unlawfully or otherwise, by employer actions that can impair those benefits. CalPERS tried, rightfully so in our opinion, to assist retirees legally in the Stockton bankruptcy, where it was determined that there was no standing. So RPA expects CalPERS full-throated legal defense of members in any case where it has standings, for example, as in AB 1912 violations. So thank you for the consideration.
Thank you very much. Mr. Behrens.
Good morning, Madam Chair and board members. Tim Behrens, President of the California State Retirees. California State Retirees is dedicated to protecting the hard-earned pensions of CalPERS retirees and retirees in every other public pension system in California. That is why we strongly support AB 1912 Rodriguez, which seeks to ensure that public agencies keep their pension promises to their employees. AB 1912 requires that Joint Powers Authority, or JPA as it's referred to, public agency members that contract with CalPERS and other pension funds to provide retirement benefits will be jointly and severally liable to fully meet those retirement obligations. AB 1912 became necessary because of 2017, the East San Gabriel Valley Human Services, JPA, defaulted on its pension payments, forcing CalPERS to reduce pension payments for nearly 200 employees by up to 63%. That's not a letter I want to receive from you all. The JPA members, the cities of Azusa, Covina, Glendora, and West Covina, and their leaders made a conscious decision to break their pension promises to employees. And for those employees, the consequence is severe, a much less secure retirement. The California State Retirees urges you to support AB 1912 and hopes that you stand with us by requiring all public agency employers to keep their pension promises they make to public servants and their retirees. And having heard the presentation by CalPERS staff, I think I would agree that we would support taking language out of the AB 1912 that has any fingerprints from the legislature on it, because we want you to control the pension fund, not the legislature. And with that, I thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Okay, that brings us to agenda item number 13, which is a summary of board direction. I don't think there was any today.
No.
And then finally, to agenda item number 14, public comment. We do have 2 members of the public who wish to speak, Mr. Johnson and Mr. Snow. If you could please make your way down. We have these 2 seats to my left. The microphones are on. Please articulate your name and your affiliation for the record, and you will have 3 minutes to speak.
Good morning, President Mather. My name is Brian Snow, and I'm from the Corona Police Officers Association and a CalPERS member. A lot of praise has been given, as I mentioned earlier, to the recent higher rate of return and cost savings that CalPERS has done in various areas, so thank you for that. There hasn't been as much or no discussion on the or concern publicly to increases to member agencies and CalPERS members and to retirees. That's occurring now and will occur over the next few years. Those areas include the amortization change, the lowering of the assumed rate of return, increases the healthcare costs for retirees, and that's just to name a few. I don't want to regurgitate a lot of the reasons why I think we need change, because you've probably heard us say it a few times over the last year that we've been coming here. Plus, I don't know how much it would really sink in. But just because the board or CalPERS has a lot of power because there is a lot of money and you guys have a lot of influence, that doesn't mean it should just be used for personal ideologies or social change. I think the focus really comes down to, or it really comes down to lack of focus on the mission of CalPERS, which is to its members. Instead, it's focused on, again, on your personal ideology, on the environment, social issues, and how you want to influence companies and industries. Those personal biases need to be let go, and the focus needs to be put where it should be, which is on CalPERS members' pensions, reducing member agencies' contributions, and on the vitality of the fund, which is increasing profits and its sustainability. The focus has been unbalanced, and the policies that are being enacted by the board, they're just their interpretations of where you think or how you can accomplish that mission of CalPERS, and I think it's in the wrong direction. I think many others feel that way as well. As costs for agencies increase over the next few years, I think you're going to see a lot more people come up here and put pressure. And when some of them are in the elected positions, when you're removed from this board, you'll probably wish you would kind of listen to us a little bit more. We've never asked this board, every time we've come up here, we've never asked to do anything but follow the Constitution of the state of California. And the mission of CalPERS. And again, I speak as the board as a whole, not to individuals. So if you do agree with us, I apologize for being frank and direct and maybe harsh, but that's how we feel. And that's as a member of CalPERS and as an association representing other CalPERS members. Thank you for your
Mr.
time.
Snow. Mr. Johnson.
Neil Johnson, SEIU 1000. Yesterday in Finance and Administration and then today in approving the committee report, we adopted the first reading of the budget and with subsequent transmittal, and we also heard from the actuaries who do very good work in adopting the state and schools valuations. But one of the things that isn't in that current budget is having PERS instead of currently the state controller and as they have done, as the controller's office has done for a decade plus, does the OPEB valuation for state employees. We earlier came and requested that work be brought in-house at PERS. PERS runs the trust fund that the money that is collected from employees will go into, so it makes sense that PERS, who has qualified actuaries, actually does the work. And we're disappointed that progress or that bringing that work in-house has not progressed that well. And with that, I really encourage you to try to move that along so that we don't come here a year from now and say the same thing. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, that concludes the public comment, and so we are adjourned. Thanks, everyone. We will not be having a closed session.
Thank you.